Hello friends, today I am going to read some peculiarities about clavicle, humerus and scapula. Okay, let's get started. Now clavicle. Clavicle is a long bone. It supports the shoulder so that the arm can swing clearly away from the trunk. The clavicle transmits the weight of the limb to the sternum. The bone has a curved part called the shaft and two ends, lateral and medial. Side determination. The side to which a clavicle belongs can be determined from the following characters. The lateral end is flat and the medial end is large and quadrilateral. The shaft is slightly curved so that it is convex forward in its medial two-thirds and concave forwards in its lateral one-third. The inferior surface is grooved laterally in its medial one-third. Peculiarities of the clavicle. It is only long bone that lies horizontally. It is subcutaneous throughout. It is first bone to start ossifying. It is only long bone which ossifies in membrane. It is the only long bone which has two primary centers of ossification. There is no medullary cavity, means no bone marrow. It is occasionally pierced by middle supraclavicular nerve. It receives weight of upper limb via lateral one-third through coracoclavicular ligament and transmits weights of upper limb to the axial skeleton via medial two-third part. Now features. Shaft. The shaft is divisible into lateral one-third and the medial one-third. The lateral one-third of the shaft is flattened from above downwards. It has two borders, anterior and posterior. The anterior border is concave forwards. The posterior border is convex backwards. This part of bone has two surfaces, superior and inferior. The superior surface is subcutaneous and the inferior surface presents an elevation called the conoid tubercle and a ridge called trapezoid ridge. The medial two-thirds of the shaft is rounded and is said to have four surfaces. The anterior surface is convex forward. The posterior surface is smooth. The superior surface is rough in its medial part. The inferior surface has a rough oval impression at the medial end. The lateral half of this surface has a longitudinal subclavian groove. The nutrient foramen lies at the lateral end of the groove. Now lateral and medial ends. The lateral or acromial end is flattened from above downwards. It bears a facet that articulates with the acromion process of the scapula to form acromioclavicular joint. The medial or sternar end is quadrilangular and articulates with the clavicular notch of the manubrium sterni to form the sternoclavicular joint. The articular surface extends to the inferior aspect for articulation with the first costal cartilage. Attachments. At the lateral end, the margin of the articular surface for its acromioclavicular joint gives attachment to joint capsule. At the medial end, the margin of articular surface for sternum gives attachment to fibrous capsule of sternoclavicular joint all round. The articular disc posterior-superiorly, interclavicular ligament superiorly. Now, lateral one-third of the shaft, very important. The anterior border gives origin to the deltoid muscle. Origin to the deltoid muscle is from anterior border. The posterior border provides insertion to the trapezius muscle. The conoid tubercle and the trapezoid ridge give attachment to the conoid and trapezoid part of the coracoclavicular ligament. Now medial two-thirds of the shaft. Most of the anterior surface give origin to pectoralis major. Anterior surface give origin to the pectoralis major. And one thing you can learn, on the medial surface only one muscle inserts, that is the subclavian vessels. Half of the rough superior surface give origin to the clavicular head of the sternocleidomastoid. Sternocleidomastoid on the superior surface. The oval impression on the inferior surface at the medial end give attachment to the costoclavicular ligament. The subclavian grooves gives insertion to the subclavius muscle. The margin of the groove give attachment to the clavipectoral fascia. The posterior surface close to medial end give origin to sternohyoid muscle. Posterior surface to sternohyoid muscle. The subclavian vessel and divisions of trunk of brachial plexus pass towards the axilla lying between the inferior surface of the clavicle and upper surface of first rib. Subclavius muscle acts as a cushion. The nutrient foramen transmits a branch of supraclavicular artery. Now ossification. The clavicle is the first bone in the body to ossify. Except for its medial end, it ossifies in membrane. It ossifies from two primary centers and one secondary center. The two primary centers appear in the shaft between the 5th and 6th week of intrauterine life and fuse about the 45th day. The secondary center for the medial end appears during 15 to 17 years and fuses with the shaft during 21 to 22 years. Occasionally, there may be a secondary center for the acromial end. Now, clinical anatomy. The clavicle is commonly fractured by falling on the outstretched hand in direct violence. The most common site of fracture is the junction between the two curvatures of the bone, which is the weakest point. The lateral fragment is displaced downward by the weight of the limb, as trapezius muscle alone is unable to support the weight of upper limb. The clavicle may be congenitally absent or imperfect, developed in a disease called cleidocranial diastosis. In this condition, the shoulder droops and can be approximated anteriorly in front of the chest. Thanks. Hello friends, now I am going to read scapula. The scapula, Latin shoulder blade, is a thin bone placed on the posterolateral aspect of thoracic cage. The scapula has two surfaces, three borders, three angles and three processes. Side determination. The lateral or glenoid Greek socket angle is large and bears the glenoid cavity. The dorsal surface is convex and is divided by triangular spine into the supraspinous and infraspinous fossa. The costal surface is occupied by concave subscapular fossa to fit on the convex chest wall. The thickest lateral border runs from glenoid cavity above to the inferior angle below. Now features. Surfaces. The costal surface or subscapular fossa is concave and is directed medially and forward. It is marked by three longitudinal ridges. Another thick ridge adjoins the lateral border. This part of the bone is almost rod-like. It acts as a lever for the action of serratus anterior in overhead abduction of the arm. The dorsal surface gives attachment to the spine of the scapula, which divides the surface into a smaller supraspinous fossa and a larger infraspinous fossa. The two fossa are connected by the spinoglenoid notch situated lateral to the root of spine. Now borders. The superior border is shortest near the root of coracoid process. It presents the suprascapular notch. The lateral border is thick. At the upper end, it presents the infraglenoid tubercle. The medial border is thin. It extends from superior angle to the inferior angle. Now angles. The superior angle is covered by the trapezius. The inferior angle is covered by latissimus dorsi. It moves forward around the chest when the arm is abducted. The lateral or glenoid cavity is broad and bears the glenoid cavity or fossa, which is directed forwards laterally and slightly upwards. A supraglenoid tubercle is present above the glenoid cavity. Now processes. The spine or spinous process is a triangular plate of bone with two borders and two surfaces. It divides the dorsal surface of the scapula into supraspinous and infraspinous fossa. Its posterior border is called crest of the spine. The crest has upper and lower lips. The acromion process has two borders, medial and lateral, two surfaces, superior and inferior, and a facet for the clavicle. The choroid Greek, like a crow's beak, process is directed forward and slightly laterally. It is bent and finger-like. It is an atavistic type of epiphysis. Now attachments. The multipinnate subscapularis muscle arises from the medial two-thirds of the subscapular fossa. The supraspinatus arises from medial two-thirds of the supraspinous fossa, including upper surface of the spine. The infraspinatus arises from middle two-thirds of the infraspinatus fossa, including the lower surface of the spine. The deltoid arises from lower border of the crest of the spine and from the lateral border of the acromion. The acromion fibers are multipinnate. The trapezius is inserted into the upper border of the crest of the spine and into the medial border of the acromion process. The serratus anterior is inserted along the medial border of the costal surface. 1 digitation from superior angle to the root of the spine, 2 digitations to the medial border, and 5 digitations to the inferior angle. The long head of biceps brachii arises from supraglenoid tubercle and a short head from lateral part of the tip of coracoid process. The coracobrachialis arises from medial part of the tip of the coracoid process. The pectoralis minor is inserted into the medial border and superior surface of coracoid process. The long head of triceps brachii arises from infraglenoid tubercle. The teres minor arises from 2 slips from the upper two-thirds of the rough strips on the dorsal surface along the lateral border. Circumflex scapular arteries lie between the 2 slips. The teres major arises from lower one-third of the rough strip on the dorsal aspect of the lateral border. Latissimus dorsi arises from inferior angle. The levator scapulae is inserted along the dorsal aspect of the medial border from the superior angle up to the root of the spine. The rhomboid minor is inserted into the medial border dorsal aspect opposite to the root of spine. The rhomboid major is inserted into the medial border dorsal aspect between the root of the spine and the inferior angle. The inferior belly of the omohyoid arises from upper border near the suprascapular notch. The margin of the glenoid cavity gives attachment to the capsule of the shoulder joint and to the glenoidal labrum. The margin of the facet on the medial aspect of the acromion process give attachment to the capsule of the acromioclavicular joint. Coracoacromial ligament is attached first to the lateral border of the coracoid process, second to the medial side of the tip of the acromion process. Coracohumeral ligament is attached to the root of the coracoid process. The coracoclavicular ligament is attached to the coracoid process, the trapezoid part on the superior aspect and the conoid part near the root. The transverse ligament bridges across the suprascapular notch and converts it into foramen which transmit the suprascapular nerves. The suprascapular vessels lies above the ligament. The spinoglenoid ligament may bridge the spinoglenoid notch. The suprascapular vessels and nerves pass deep to it. Now, clinical anatomy. Paralysis of serratus anterior causes winging of scapula. The medial border of the bone becomes unduly prominent and the arm can't be abducted beyond 90 degrees. The scaphoid scapula is a developmental anomaly in which the medial border is concave. Now, ossification of the scapula. The scapula ossifies from one primary center and 7 secondary centers. The primary center appears near the glenoid cavity during the 8th week of the development. The first secondary center appears in the middle of the coracoid process during the first year and fuses by the 15th year. The subcoracoid center appears in the root of the coracoid process during the 10th year and fuses by 16 to 18 years. The other centers, including 2 for the acromion process, 1 for the lower two-thirds of the margin of the glenoid cavity, 1 for the medial border and 1 for the inferior angle, appears at puberty and fuses by 25th years. The The fact of practical importance is concerned with the acromion process. If the two centers appearing for acromion process fail to unite, it may be interpreted as a fracture on the radiological examination. In such cases, a radiograph of opposite acromion process will mostly reveal similar failure of union. So thanks. Hello friends, now I am going to read humerus. The humerus is the bone of the arm. It is the longest bone of the upper limb. It has an upper rounded end and a lower flattened end and a shaft. Side determination: the upper end is rounded to form the head. The lower end is expanded from side to side and flattened from before backwards. The head is directed medially upwards and backwards. The lesser tubercle projects from the front of the upper end and is limited laterally by the intertubercle sulcus or bicipital groove. Features: upper end. The head is directed medially backwards and upwards. It articulates with the glenoid cavity or the scapula to form the shoulder joint. The head forms about 1/3 of the sphere and is much larger than the glenoid cavity. The line separating the head from the rest of the upper end is called the anatomical neck. The lesser tubercle is an elevation on the anterior aspect of the upper end. The greater tubercle is an elevation that forms the lateral part of the upper end. Its upper and posterior aspect is marked by 3 impressions: upper impression, middle impression, and lower impression. The intertubercular sulcus or bicipital groove separates the lesser tubercle medially from the anterior part of the greater tubercle. The sulcus has medial and lateral lips that represent downward prolongations of the lesser and greater tubercles. The narrow line separating the upper end of humerus from the shaft is called surgical neck. Morphological neck lies above surgical neck at junctions of convex end of diaphysis with concave end of upper epiphysis. Shaft. Shaft is rounded in the upper half and triangular in the lower half. It has 3 borders and 3 surfaces. Borders. The upper 1/3 of the anterior border forms the lateral lip of the intertubercular sulcus. In its middle part, it forms anterior margin of the deltoid tuberosity. The lower half of the anterior border is smooth and rounded. The lateral border is prominent only at the lower end, where it forms the lateral supracondylar ridge. In the upper part, it barely traceable up to the posterior surface of greater tubercle. In the middle part, it is interrupted by the radial or spiral groove. The upper part of the medial border forms the medial lip of the intertubercular sulcus. About its medial, it presents a rough strip. It is continuous below with the medial supracondylar ridge. Surfaces. The anterolateral surface lie between the anterior and lateral borders. The upper half of the surface is covered by the deltoid. A little above the middle is marked by V-shaped deltoid. Greek, triangular shaped tuberosity. Behind the deltoid tuberosity, the radial groove runs downward and forwards across the surface. The anteromedial surface lies between the anterior and medial borders. Its upper 1/3 is narrow and forms the floor of intertubercular sulcus. A nutrient foramen is seen near the medial border below its middle part. The posterior surface lies between the medial and lateral borders. Its upper part is marked by an oblique ridge. The middle 1/3 is crossed by a radial groove. Lower end. The lower end of humerus forms the condyle, which is expanded from side to side and has articular and non-articular parts. The articular parts include following: the capitulum, little head, is rounded projection which articulates with the head of radius. The trochlea means pulley is a pulley-shaped surface. It articulates with the trochlear notch of the ulna. The medial ridge of the trochlea projects down 6 mm more than the lateral edge. This results in the formation of carrying angle. The non-articular part includes the following: medial epicondyle is a prominent bony projections on the medial surface of the lower end. It is subcutaneous and is easily felt on the medial side of the elbow. The lateral epicondyle is smaller than the medial epicondyle. Its anterolateral part has muscular impression. The sharp lateral margin just above the lower end is called the lateral supracondylar ridge. The medial supracondylar ridge is a small ridge on the medial side. The coracoid fossa is a coronoid fossa is a depression just above the anterior aspect of the trochlea. It accommodates the coronoid process of the ulna when the elbow is flexed. The radial fossa is a depression present just above the anterior aspects of the capitulum. It accommodates the head of the radius when the elbow is flexed. The olecranon, Greek ulna head fossa, lies just above the posterior aspect of the trochlea. It accommodates the olecranon process of the ulna when the elbow is extended. Now attachments. The multipinate subscapularis is inserted into the lesser tubercle. The supraspinatus is inserted into the uppermost impression on the greater tubercle. The infraspinatus is inserted into the middle impression on the greater tubercle. You can learn it by SIT, sit, bat jaw on the greater tubercle, SIT. The teres minor is inserted into the lower impression of the greater tubercle. The pectoralis major is inserted into the lateral lip of intertubercular sulcus. The insertion is bilaminar. The latissimus dorsi is inserted into the floor of intertubercular sulcus. You can learn it by lady between two majors, pectoralis major on the lateral side and teres major on the medial lip, and on the floor latissimus dorsi is present. Now the teres major is inserted into the medial lip of the intertubercular sulcus. Now the contents of the intertubercular sulcus or basipital groove are: first, the tendons of the long head of biceps brachii and its synovial sheath, and second, the ascending branch of the anterior circumflex humeral artery. Now, the deltoid is inserted into the deltoid tuberosity. The coracobrachialis is inserted into the rough area on the middle of the medial border. The brachialis arises from lower half of the anteromedial and anterolateral surface of the shaft. Part of the area extends onto the posterior aspect. The brachioradialis arises from upper two-thirds of the lateral supracondylar ridge. The extension carpi radialis longus arises from lower one-third of the lateral supracondylar ridge. The pronator teres humeral head arises from the lower one-third of the medial supracondylar ridge. The superior flexor muscle of the forearm arises by a common origin from anterior aspect of the medial epicondyle. This is called common flexor region. The superficial extensor muscle of the forearm and supinator have a common origin from the lateral epicondyle. It is called the common extensor origin. And coneus, Greek elbow, arises from the posterior surface of the lateral epicondyle. Lateral head of triceps brachii arises from oblique ridge on the upper part of posterior surface above the radial groove, while its medial head arises from posterior surface below the radial groove. The capsular ligament of the shoulder joint is attached to the anatomical neck except on the medial side, where the line of attachment dips down by about 2 cm to include a small area of shaft within the joint cavity. The line is interrupted at the intertubercular sulcus to provide an aperture through which the tendon of long head of the biceps brachii lifts the joint cavity. The capsular ligament of the elbow joint is attached to the lower end along a line that reaches the upper limits of the radial and coronoid fossa anteriorly and of the olecranon fossa posteriorly, so that these fossa lie within the joint cavity. Medially, the line of attachment passes between the medial epicondyle and the trochlea. On the lateral side, it passes between the lateral epicondyle and the capitulum. 3 nerves are directly related to the humerus and are therefore liable to injury. Axillary nerve at the surgical neck, the radial nerve at the radial groove, and the ulnar nerve behind the medial epicondyle. Now, ossification of humerus. The humerus ossifies from one primary center and 7 secondary centers. The primary centers appear in the middle of the diaphysis during 8th week of development. The upper end ossifies from 3 secondary centers, one for the head first year, one for the greater tubercle second year, and one for the lesser tubercle fifth year. The 3 centers fuse together during the 6th year to form one compound epiphysis which fuses with the shaft during the 20th year. The epiphyseal line encircles the bone at the level of lowest margin of the head. This is the growing end of the bone. Remember that the nutrient foramen is always directed away from the growing end towards the elbow I go and from the knee I flee. The lower end ossifies from 4 centers which form 2 epiphyses. The centers include one for the capitulum and the lateral flange of the trochlea first year, one for medial flange of the trochlea 9th year, and one for the lateral epicondyle 12th years. All 3 fuse during the 14th year to form another compound epiphysis which fuses with the shaft at about 16 years. The center for the medial epicondyle appears during 4 to 6 years, form a separate epiphysis, and fuses with the shaft during the 20th year. Now, clinical anatomy of the humerus. The common site of fracture of humerus are first surgical neck, second the shaft, and the third supracondylar region. Supracondylar fracture is common in young age. It is produced by a fall on the outstretched hand. The lower fragment is mostly displaced backward so that the elbow is underly prominent, as in dislocation of the elbow joint. This fracture may cause injury to the median nerve. It may also lead to Volkmann's ischemic contracture caused by occlusion of the brachial artery. The 3 bony points of the normal elbow forms a triangle in a flexed elbow and are in one line in an extended elbow. The humerus has a poor blood supply at the junction of its upper 1/3 and lower 2/3. Fracture at this site shows delayed union or non-union. The head of the humerus commonly dislocates inferiorly, subglenoid. Thanks.